See if I actually have everything working here. Seems like it's working. Okay, sweet. We are working. Awesome. Set this up a little better here. Alrighty, so I'm going to wait a couple of minutes if you are watching back this replay to actually get some people to tune in here. And once we get this started and get some people to start rolling, I'll start talking. Alrighty. Hello, welcome. I'm just waiting like a couple more minutes to make sure we have everyone else come in that plans on coming in here. I'm unsure if you had a chance, whoever's in here, to actually read. But if you have any questions, even if they're not pertinent to what I'm talking about in this very moment, like ask away. There's not any like issue with that at all. Yeah, I plan on keeping up until probably close to 6:30. But we'll see obviously how it goes. If we go a little overtime, then I'm not worried about it. Obviously, because I want to make sure we actually get something good out of this. Just gonna make the post real quick. Actually grab a seat here. Oh, get comfy. Okay. All right, it's all working. Sweet. Okay, perfect. Yep. Okay, perfect. Sweet. It sounds good. Alrighty. All the technical stuff is all done. Apologize about that if you were watching this back. So I am going to start now, and I'm just going to kind of begin. If you are watching, I'm waving my arms. If you are watching this replay, this is where the video will actually be starting. So the main purpose of what I'm trying to discuss today is to kind of set out the groundwork for how most coaching and most people that you've seen online and other channels and other videos and stuff, how you're told that that is the best way to learn bowling. However, I kind of branch off of that and have a very different and I guess unique sort of way to like teach it and discuss it. So I'll discuss what you probably heard about a million times, and then I'll kind of dive into how I like to personally teach it. So I'm sure all of you have had some sort of coaching, and whether you choose to count it coaching or not, I'm sure all of you have had someone in your life when you've been bowling that has come up to you and said, hey, I would recommend this, or this is something I like to do that works, and this is something that whoever likes to do that works, and whatever, you should try this, and do this when you throw, and you know, if you leave a 10 pin, you move a board right, and whatever. You hear, there's a million things you can hear. And while many will argue that there is a wrong way to teach something. I would argue that there isn't. So bowling is kind of unique in that there's no refined answer to any of your problems. Everybody will have their own unique perspective when it comes to a problem that they have with bowling, as well as things that may work for them may not work for me, or things that work for me may not work for you, or vice versa. So living and dying by one way or one person or one sort of blanket of ideas within this sport is just, to put it simply, not what I would recommend. And you can sit here and listen to things I'm providing you. However, I would not explicitly rely on the fact that my information, I wouldn't, if that makes sense, I wouldn't consider my perspective on things to be the number one way and number one perspective that you want to have on things. So throughout the time you're listening to anybody, including myself, keep your ears and eyes open to other ideas, because one thing I'm saying may work for somebody but not for somebody else, and vice versa with coaching. So I think the problem that many of us tend to run into, at least way more often than not, is you start getting some coaching, you start to learn things, and you quickly realize that the thing that everybody is the most worried about and always will be the most worried about is how you throw, how you physically approach, like different concepts within the actual like physical side of the sport. So I'm talking like, we've all heard it. Coaches are like, oh, you got to make sure that you stay balanced and firm at the foul line. You can't go up and down. It's like an airplane landing, and you got to do all this, and you got to, someone probably put the towel between your armpit and said, okay, this towel can't move. You can't do all this stuff. So that is most common. And the reason no one should be at fault for teaching it that way is that's the easiest thing that we all can see. You and I can physically look at somebody that's playing and say, okay, that person is struggling with this, and this with just my eyes. I don't have to know what's going on up here in their head or know what they're seeing, what they're looking at, because what I can physically see is right there. So that's the easiest, and always will be the easiest, within bowling at least, thing to correct and thing to work on, right? That is undoubtable. However, where most of this tends to fall flat is, it's almost like, imagine you're teaching someone basketball and you're teaching them how to like properly follow through or how to properly do something, right? Think of it like basketball. You're teaching someone how to properly follow through, different ways to flick their wrist and do whatever. However, if they don't know how that ball should be going in the basket, or even how many points are scored when they make a basket, it's redundant to teach someone how to shoot the basketball that doesn't know what the point of the sport is. Does that make sense? So with a lot of coaching that you get around when it comes to bowling, a lot of people like to start from what they can see. And that's, again, as we just discussed, what you can see is you can see how someone throws the ball, the physical stuff. However, what I can't see as a coach, I can't see what you're thinking, what you're looking at, and everything in between these two ears. Okay? So sure, it's super duper easy for me to sit here and say, do this physically, or any coach for that matter. That's why we all fall into that blanket. That's why I think it's kind of constrained. With most coaching, I get it. You need to focus on the physical stuff because that sets up, getting more power and more speed and more revs and blah, 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 whatever else you've heard before. Like, I understand that. However, if you don't understand why the pins fall the way they fall, then how can you expect someone to strike? You can have someone that has the most phenomenal looking physical game, but if that person has no concept of how to move their feet, how to like change what they target, what they even should be targeting, what type of ball that they should throw that caters to their like specific needs of the game. If you strictly focus on teaching someone how to throw and the physical side of it, sure, you'll get people to throw the ball well, but it's completely useless information if that person has no concept of what their ball is actually doing, right? So when I talk about what I believe is very constrained with the coaching that they have now, especially with bowling, is when everyone is so focused on, oh, work on this when you throw, plant your foot, do this, slide your foot, whatever people say, I get it. That's the easiest thing to fix, and it always will be the number one thing that coaching within the sport of bowling will always focus on. However, I think that that's wrong. I think that before you even start to learn how to throw the bowling ball, you need to understand what the bowling ball is doing as it's going through the pins. So think of it, instead of the traditional coaching, which is teaching what you can see to then going into what you're thinking, I like to go opposite. I like to go, let's get your thinking in the right place. And then if you know what should be happening, the physical stuff will come, because if you understand why things are the way they are, I won't have to sit here and spoon feed you all the little physical things you have to work on, because you'll realize, okay, man, I'm getting really around the ball, but the lane is only 18 inches wide, but 60 feet long to the head pin. So clearly I need to, and again, that's just one thing I just said, but I could go so deep here, guys, trust me. But I think that what we need to work on, at least when we're trying to develop our understanding, is let's focus on what's between these two ears, and then we'll go into what we're actually seeing, and then we'll fix the stuff from there. Okay? So that personally is how I like to coach, and how I always will like to coach, because that, at least for my students that I've taught in the past, has seemed to be much, much, much more effective as opposed to what we're all used to, right? So let's kind of go a little deeper into that. So let's think of where we want to start. So I had a very long coaching session over a whole weekend with PBA professional Brad Angelo. If any of you know him, he's a little bit older. He's on the PBA 50 tour now. He's phenomenal. And he's a part of a kind of like this organization called Bull U. And if any of you are interested in more coaching and stuff, that's very similar to the way I like to speak. Bull U is a phenomenal program that I will recommend taking a look at. A lot of their stuff online is free, so it's a great thing to look at. So it's one thing to know what the ball's doing in the middle. However, what we want to start with is, okay, once you know how the scoring and everything works, which I'm assuming all of you in here probably know how that works, but if not, I can go over that. And again, if any of you have questions not pertinent to what I'm talking about, please type in the chat. I would absolutely love to help you guys out. It does not have to be pertinent to the topic. I want to help you guys out any way I can. Where was I here? Sorry, I got kind of lost a little bit. Okay, so we need to first understand what the pins are doing. So if any of you have not had a chance to go on my YouTube channel and click on the shorts and watch that video that shows the ball going through the pins and leaving different spares and stuff, strongly, it's a minute long, if even, I would highly advise you look at that, because it'll kind of open up your mind. So when we think bowling, at least a lot of people, we like to think, okay, you know, got to hit the pins hard and send stuff everywhere, and it'll strike every time, right? How could it not strike every time? You're wrong. So the common misconception that most people have up here when they first start is there's some luck to it, right? Like if I throw it harder, I'll have a higher chance of striking no matter what. Well, although that's true, your ball has, let me think, I don't have a ruler with me, but it's less than it's like about a half an inch that you have to hit for it to have a very high odds of striking, which a half inch is like what? That? Like between like the two sides of my eye, if even. That's really small, and that's 60 feet away from you. So think about that for a minute. If you're not within that, like 5 inches or like 5-10 inches of like room, or not 5 inches, what the hell am I? Half an inch of room, right? Like it's not going to strike. I'm sorry. Unless you get a really, really wicked, unless you throw the ball 18,000 miles an hour, then yes, sure, your speed will help there. But you have to be accurate down to this much of room for it to have a above 90% odds of striking, which is why people think, okay, there's some luck to it. No, you're wrong. What determines what this is doing as it's going through the pins is how it deflects off of the pins. Most of you probably throw, 14 to 15 pounds, at least on the tour and in leagues. That's what most of your bowlers will throw. If you're a little bit younger or you're just starting to pick it up, you probably throw like a 12 or 13. Now, think about that. That's almost a boulder, right? So you'd think that can't get moved around a whole lot. What do you mean it's going to deflect off of the pins? These are a little more than 3 pounds, and there's 10 of them. 10. So let's think. There's 10 pins. That's 30. 10 times 3 is 30. And this is at most that you can throw 16 pounds. There's almost double the amount of weight in these pins than there is in this ball. If I sit here and I throw this ball into just one pin, you'll notice it kind of bounces off to the side unless I hit it dead on. See if you guys can actually see it. So it might not make a very good like kind of show and tell. Maybe I'll see if I can move a little closer. But I just want to show you guys this because this will open up your mind. So I'm going to make it hit this side of the pin closer to you guys coming in this way, and you'll see it. 15-pound ball, or no, this one's a 16. This is a 6. This is the heaviest you can have. And you're going to see the pin fall this way and the ball ricochet this way. See? And that's one pin. Now there's 9 more that this thing has to go. And you're also throwing it harder, and the pins are going off of each other. So now it's bouncing around more and the ball's getting moved around. And if you have not had a chance to see that YouTube short yet, go check that out because you will see it so much more. So we know there's 10 pins in that triangle formation, right? There are millions of ways you can strike, but only one of them is the correct or textbook strike, right? So we know there's 10 pins. We know it goes 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the back. That makes up your 10 pins, right? Your ball in a perfect strike is only actually making direct contact with 4 of them. 4 pins, okay? And if you watch that short and watch the first throw, you'll see it hit the 4 pins in the dead middle, and the pins hit each other on the way out. The only time you leave stuff is when that ball doesn't hit those 4 pins. If it hits those 4 pins, I'm telling you, you're going to strike. You're going to strike. You literally cannot miss. It will strike. You could throw it 5 miles an hour. You could throw it 500 miles an hour. If it hits those 4 pins directly within that half an inch of room you have, it will strike. There is no luck. There is no anything. If anyone tells you different, they are incorrect and wrong. I am not going to sit here and lie to you. None of us are paid enough, right? I'm not even paid at all for this. I do this just because I like it, right? So the sooner you understand that, okay, and the sooner you kind of learn, oh, wow, like my ball over deflected there. Oh, my ball kind of went a little hard there. Like that kind of stuff will help elevate your mind. And then you'll start realizing, okay, what can I do physically to make that ball deflect more or deflect less? How can I get more or less angle depending on where I'm throwing? I could go on and on, but we'll discuss further into the pin characteristics at a later live stream or video. So someone said, hang on, I got to kind of lean in. My eyes are getting old here, people. It says, what is the difference between some of the different oil patterns? So good question. So this actually transitions very well into the next part, which is, so once you know the pins, then you have to know the lane or the oil or why it is the way it is. So for most of us that bowl in league, myself included, I want you to imagine golfing. Okay, think of golfing. And you know how like when you're putting, how there's like the topography and like the green and all that stuff that makes the hole? House shot, aka what all of you are bowling on in league. Imagine in golfing, it's like putting, except the topography is making a down motion right into the hole. So if you miss to the right, it'll kind of hit that and go in. Or if you miss a little too far to the left, it'll go and it'll go. You get what I'm saying? So house shot has a 10-to-1 ratio. Within the middle 10 floorboards of the lane, there's 10 times the amount of oil there is in the outside. So if you were listening to my previous video I just posted on adjusting, we know, okay, that means if there's more oil here, less on the outside. If I miss to the right, it's going to see less friction, aka less oil, and hook in sooner. Versus if I miss to the inside, it's going to skid for longer because it's seeing more of that oil and then hook less. So that's kind of creating that illusion. And it's so difficult to understand because this is so unique that this is the only sport where the playing field is invisible. Imagine trying to play football, but you're playing on nothing and you have no idea where the end zone is. That's what bowling is. So trying to understand that is like, whoa, like that's a huge shock to most people, which is again where I'm trying to go with this. So now that we know there's that 10-to-1 ratio, I want you to imagine you take a professional who can hit something the width of a penny on the lane when it comes to accuracy. And you say, okay, I'm going to take that 10-to-1 ratio and I'm going to make it a 2-to-1 ratio. AKA if I miss right or miss left, there's a fifth of the amount of help that I would be getting. And sometimes it's even worse. Sometimes it's completely flat. If you look up the red box, it is literally completely even, same amount of oil, completely dispersed, and it cuts off. So that is difficult because that means you have this much room to be accurate by, and every throw you have completely changes the way the oil looks, right? So the oil patterns can vary in how much oil there is, how it's dispersed, additionally to how long it goes, right? Some patterns might only go 32 feet. Some patterns might go, I think the longest I've ever heard of was like 50. So that means there's only 10 feet left where there's no oil. And the one where there's 33, there's only 27 feet where there's no oil, right? So that kind of stuff can dictate, okay, how soon or late will my ball hook no matter what I try to do. But then the other thing you have to take into account is every time I throw that ball, it's soaking up oil, so it's drying it. But then if you've ever thrown a bowling ball, have you noticed how there's like little oil rings? It's spewing it up and making a splash zone past where the oil cuts off. So it's almost getting longer toward the end, but getting shorter in the beginning. So that means you got to, I could go so far down this hole, dude. But like, I think you kind of get the point. The whole point is the oil patterns that we bowl on or that league bowlers bowl on, or like some like the super novice tournaments, are designed to create as much wiggle room for error as possible, right? If I miss right, it'll hook sooner. If I miss in, it'll hook later. If I miss only a little bit, it's good. If I don't catch it, if I don't flick my hand as hard at the bottom, it'll still read early or whatever. You get the point. It's designed to create that illusion. If you want to think of something that you can think of, that you can see, think of golfing and putting, except the topography is dipping into the hole. That's the best way I can describe a house shot. But then versus the hard ones, they're almost like tipping away from the hole, where you have to be really, really accurate. So that's a good way you can translate into something we can't see into something that we can see. So excellent question. So now that we're on the topic, the lane, right? I have another video that discusses this and how nobody hooks the ball more than anybody else. So I know we've all seen it. We've all been there. We've all been online and we watch the pros. You'll watch like Jason Belmo, EJ Tackett, Andrew Anderson, all those dudes, or even some of the women on the PW, like Daria, Liz, all those girls, like they are just flicking the hell out of their hand. The ball's hooking like crazy. And it's like, holy crap, like they are hooking the ball so much and I'm just not. Or you might be throwing the ball super slow and hooking it a ton. You're like, man, I can't get my ball to not hook enough. Nobody hooks the ball more than anybody else. It's not possible. And again, you're probably like, what do you mean? Like if someone's standing way deeper than me and their ball's flicking and coming off the spot, which is a myth, by the way, that's not a thing. Oh, it's hooking real hard and it's coming in and slamming pins everywhere. How am I even supposed to compete with that? They're not. They're not doing that. That's not what that is. Okay. I wish I had something to actually map this out with you guys in live time, because you would be like, holy crap. But go on Google and look up lane dimensions to scale. Okay, let's think. Let's just think for a moment. 60 feet from the foul line to the base of the head pin. That's 60 feet. From the right side of the lane where the gutter isn't, aka the farthest you can throw right before your ball goes in the gutter, and the closest you can get to that head pin with it having high odds of striking, is 18 inches. Not feet, inches. That's less than 2 feet of room that your ball is moving left or right, and 60 feet that it's going front and back. Okay, so let's just think for a moment. Okay, let's think. Okay, 60 feet long, at most I can hook, and that's if I'm going from the edge of the gutter into as close as I can on the head pin. The most that I can make my ball hook or move left and right is 18 inches, and the farthest it has to go is 60 feet. Why do so many coaches and why do we all talk about left and right adjustments? Because shouldn't it be front and back adjustments? Shouldn't I want to move my feet forward or back, or like my ball speed and stuff? You think, right? Well, let's think. Why would most people want to make left and right movements if it's not as important? Well, it's not that sure, it's not as important, but since there's less does more, left and right, people like to make left and right moves because it makes such a big difference instantly. If you only move, let's say, again, if we know it's 18 inches wide, 60 feet long, if I move an inch back with my feet, right, because I want to make the ball hook a little more, is that going to do as much as me moving an inch to the right or to the left? No, right, because there's less room to work with. So that's why so many bowlers, especially at the lower levels, while you're learning, I will advocate make left and right movements so you can understand like the concept of understanding, so that you can follow along with what I'm saying. That's why in that adjustment video, I focused a lot on talking about left and right movements, especially when you're first learning, because those are extremely useful. You get an instant benefit, and you can instantly see and reap the benefits of seeing how much difference your ball is creating and how much more you're hitting the oil versus not, right? However, once you get into the higher level, you'll realize moving left and right always doesn't necessarily do stuff, because other bowlers could be bowling in different spots and changing the oil and other stuff. So it becomes a lot more complicated. So if we know there's 60 feet to the lane and 18 inches max I can hook it, we know, okay, maybe I don't have to really spin it and really try to make it hook, right? I mean, I don't have to, because it's not going that far. Guys, most of you are not getting it 18 inches anyway. I don't get it 18 inches, and I rip it hard. Like I'd say maybe the most you'll see me cover is like 11 boards, which is not even 18. That's less than a foot. Less than a foot that my ball is hooking in the grand scheme of things. The only reason it looks like I'm hooking it more is because I'm standing way lefter, and because my ball's spinning so much, I have to get it to stay in that oil for super freaking long, because if it doesn't, it's not going to stay long enough. Do you get what I'm saying? So when you see people that are spinning it really slow and they're standing way to the right, that's because they need their ball to see all that friction instantly so it has a chance to hook enough. Versus me, if I move that far right, it would see friction so much so quick that it would hook off the left side into the gutter, right? So get that out of your head that you're not creating as much as somebody else, because everybody is. It just looks different. In that video that I posted, I think it was like the first full video I posted. When you watch it, I actually take two different shots I threw and I overlaid the videos together. So it's kind of faded. The ball at the end of the lane is hooking the exact, they literally overlap. It's just, I'm playing the lane in a different way. If I wanted to, I could for sure move over there where the people that don't create all that rotation can go, and I could for sure strike. But you have to cater where you're standing to how you like to throw. Nobody throws the ball the same, okay? And a lot of coaches, and I used to be this way, and I'm so glad I'm not anymore. I used to think that there was a cookie cutter way for someone to throw the ball, right? You see the professionals and you can kind of gauge the cookie cutter way off of how people do stuff. But have you noticed none of them throw the ball the same way? Not one of them. They all have one little different thing or some sort of variancy between each of them, because one method does not work. There is no one way to strike. If there was one way to strike, there'd be one professional bowler, and that would be the cookie cutter way of striking. What I'm saying is get it out of your head. And if you have a coach that's telling you there's a cookie cutter way to strike, tell them to stop telling you that, because it's wrong. It's wrong. I'm sorry. I refuse to believe that anybody saying that can be correct with that, because it's just not correct. It's just not. No one throws the ball the same way, and you have to gauge and play the lane into more of the oil, out of more of the oil, way steeper angles, get more inches out of your hook like we were just talking about, or get less, depending on how you throw and how you release the bowling ball. That's the part that matters. And this is where the big divide comes from with the old school way of coaching and the new school way. Is the old school is saying, if you throw it this way and throw it right here and stand on 10, you post your shot, it'll strike every time. No. The lane, within the two shots you just threw, guess what? You just pushed oil and everything. The way the game plays versus how it did 10, 15, even just 5 years ago is way different. The equipment is getting crazier, all that other stuff. One-handing all day, yo. Brandon's in the chat. I knew it. So you need to understand that just rid it of your mind now that you throw just as hard, just as quickly. You have all the capabilities. You just have to play the lane in the way that best fits your game physically. So now we know, okay, I have to understand the pins, understand why they fall, how my ball deflects, how it moves. And then I have to understand the lane. Okay, why does the oil move? Where should I move depending on what type of ball motion I'm trying to create? Because you'll know right away if you're standing somewhere and your ball over deflects or something, then you know, okay, my ball clearly is not reading the lane enough to have that continuity or less deflection as it's going through those pins. So clearly I have to make an adjustment. Versus if I just taught somebody, here's how you throw the bowling ball, they wouldn't see that. They wouldn't be able to think of that stuff right on the fly. So, okay, we know, okay, understand deflection, make adjustments off of what the lane is telling me and how to get that proper deflection and get my ball to travel through those 4 pins in the center. Okay, we got that part understand. Now what kind of stuff do I have to understand? Okay, the biggest part that all of you are going to struggle with, and I still continue to struggle with, is the lane part. Once you understand the pins, you'll never unsee it. You'll always be able to see that perfect strike. But the hard part's going to be understanding how to move your feet, how to change the way you're throwing. Maybe if you ever seen it, loft the ball, give it hang time. There's a million different ways to adjust. So that part's the most difficult part. And that's the part you'll never have an answer to, because the lane's always different. Every time you bowl, the lane will be different. People you're bowling against will throw different balls, all that kind of stuff. But you just need to understand, okay, my ball has to hit these 4 pins, or at least get as close to that as I can given the conditions that are out there, and cater how I'm standing, how I'm throwing, all that jazz to that, okay? Then is when we get into the part that everybody loves, which is the physical game. Now, if you follow along with what I've been saying, and you, every time you go and practice, work on your understanding, I can promise you, you're going to realize if I took a video a month ago and then did all this like stuff and learning how the pin's deflected, learning how my ball behaves, learning how all that kind of stuff. If you took a video the month following the previous one, I can guarantee you'd throw the ball different. Because you're realizing in your head, okay, something I'm doing is wrong, or something I'm doing is not the best fit for the most common conditions I bowl on. So I have to change it. And I've made so many self-conscious changes. It's been crazy. I should actually post that. I should make a short with that, because I kid you not, I could find a video of a month ago, even now. And even what I'm doing now, I throw the ball so different. It doesn't even, like, if you did 6 months ago, I wouldn't even look like the same bowler. Like, a lot of stuff that you pick up on, you kind of do self-consciously. But again, if all you focus on is, okay, I'm falling off balance all the time, I got to stay on balance. It's like, why? Why do you have to stay on balance? And it's funny because I actually asked somebody that. They were like, yeah, I'm working on my balance. And I was like, why do you stay on balance? And they said, oh, because my coach told me to. And I'm like, so you don't even know why you're staying on balance. Like, it's like you can teach a man to fish, or you can catch a man to fish, he'll eat for a day. You'll teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. That's the kind of thing it is. If you teach the physical game first, you'll teach them, here's your fish. But if you teach someone how to understand what the heck is in front of them, then and only then can they start to catch their own fish and get their own strikes. I hope this is making sense, and I hope all of you are following along. If you're not, please shoot a message in the chat, because I want to provide clarity for all of you as much as I can, because it's just baffling. Like, in most sports, if not almost all other sports, you can go with the physical stuff first, because that's the stuff that's dictating the physical things dictate the reality that's in front of you, right? However, with bowling, the oil is invisible, guys. Like, again, it's like playing football on an invisible football field, and you have no idea where anything is. And you only know if you scored because the scoreboard changes, aka you strike, right? So the hardest thing, and what always will be and always should be the hardest thing for you to learn, is the lane and the oil, and how you can even learn ways to throw that will make that oil pattern offer even more forgiveness for you. And then once you understand that and are self-conscious of how that ball is traveling through them pins, why am I leaving what I'm leaving? What is my ball not doing that it should be doing? Then the physical stuff all comes into play. Because it's like, okay, I know what's happening, but I can't, but like this is when the physical stuff becomes important. Is, let's say I'm in a situation where I can't get my ball to hook anymore based off of how I like to bowl, okay? And no matter what I do, no matter where I move, no matter how I change my target, I cannot get that ball to hook in enough. Then is when it's saying, okay, we gotta work on something physically. That is when the physical stuff then comes into play, and you're creating yourself that versatility to play different parts of the lane in case something, which again, situational. Playing in different spots of the lane can be hard one day, easy the other day, super easy the next day, extremely hard the next day, impossible for you to strike the next day. It's all different. But then once you have that physical stuff, you can play different parts of the lane. You start to understand the different bowling balls and how they behave when you throw it, and yada, yada, yada. You get the point. So physical game. So here, based off what I said earlier, how every bowler is unique and everyone throws the ball their own way, it would be equally as incorrect for me to sit here and tell you that throw any way you want, because, okay, let's say that you're struggling to hit your target. Like let's say you like to look at the arrows and you can't hit your arrows. Okay, swing your swing, man. But if your swing is like coming around your body like this, then it's like, okay, that would work, sure. But if you're going like this, if you don't release that ball at the perfect time, of course you're not going to hit your target, because it's going like this. It's like a baseball bat. If I release too early, I'm going to miss this way. If I release too late, I'm going to miss this way. If I do whatever, okay, right? So throw the way that you want to throw. However, some things will and always will be, at least until the equipment and the oil and stuff changes, which I don't suspect will be too crazy anytime soon. Some stuff is just universally preferred / universally more effective, right? Kind of going off that example I had earlier with someone that was working on their balance, right? Let's say I have poor balance. Let's say when I throw the ball, I struggle to hold a consistent spot at the line, and I like kind of fall this way or a lot of people have that problem with the leg that their arm they throw, their leg will kind of come out like this. Now, that's okay if that happens, but let's say I fall off balance a lot, and on the times I don't fall off balance, I release the ball here, and on times I do, I'm releasing the ball over here. Okay, now there's a problem with that, right? Plus, let's say I throw, and let's say I do release at the same spot, but I step over here. I no longer know where I just threw the ball from. Do you get what I'm saying? So sure, that's an issue and something you should work on. And a lot of people on the like a lot of pros lose their balance all the time. Every shot they take, they'll lose their balance, which is great. Good for you. But at some point, you do kind of have to realize, okay, that is something that I am getting for sure no benefit from. Like some people, like me, I have a really goofy setup. So I made a switch to two-handed somewhat recently, but I have thrown one-handed, I promise. When I set up, this is my setup. Look at how I'm holding the ball. That's weird. That's very weird. However, for me, at the point of release, look how inside of the ball my hand is, and look how underneath it I am. So guess what? I get a benefit out of doing something non-conventionally. Does that make sense? So every bowler does something non-conventionally. However, when they do that non-conventional thing, there's a benefit to that, right? What made you switch to two-handed? So for me, this is a very common debate. So one-handed versus two-handed, you kind of have to make your decision off of that. This is a great conversation to get into. You kind of have to make your decision on that based off of your strengths and weaknesses. The one-handed style is, you'll notice in the professionals, and again, however you want to throw is completely fine. However, in the professionals, you'll notice a lot of the one-handed bowlers, they tend to focus. It's a lot more focused on control. You'll notice that they have a lot more accuracy. You'll notice in their swing, they're usually a lot more stable, a lot more of that. However, a lot of people tend to struggle. The most common problem that they have with that is they can't get their hand underneath the ball, because it's way harder to get your hand to lock into that position like I talked into in that water video versus two-handed where it already is in that position. So for me, at least, when I threw one-handed, I really had difficulties. I was very accurate, very, very accurate, and I still am when I bowl. However, I ran into a lot of difficulties where I struggled to get my hand underneath the ball and create the correct rotation off of what the lane. Because I could rotate it, but it would be spinning 90 degrees. And since we know 60 feet, 18 inches, that's not optimal. I was striking, sure, but could it be better? Yes. And then I decided I'll throw one-handed without my thumb in. So now that's forcing me to get my hand underneath it, because if I don't, the ball will fall out of my hand, right? Versus with a thumb, I can do this, which is a bad habit to get into, right? Without the thumb, my arm had to be underneath it. So I threw one-handed with a thumb, with no thumb for a while, but then I was losing a lot of accuracy because with all that weight, because I throw 15 pounds, all that weight being moved around, it's hard for me to bring my arm to my target because the ball might fall this way and I'm like, oh, and I'd like try to catch it or would like fall in my hand. I'm like, oh. So some people, Tom Doherty is a good one that bowls like that. That makes it work for him. Again, not my way to bowl people, but I very quickly realized I lost control. I had a lot more power, a lot more speed, a lot more revolutions. I could get my hand in the right spot at the point of release a lot easier. But when I'm not accurate, it's kind of in vain unless I'm on a house shot. On a house shot, I was great. But the minute I was getting into the sport shot leagues and the more complicated patterns where there wasn't all of that wiggle room, I lost a lot of help. So then I said, okay, what's the best of both worlds? If I throw one hand without the thumb, I have all the power in the world. If I throw with the thumb, I have all the control at the other hand. And I very quickly was able to realize, okay, I can get really, really great control. I can get really good accuracy. My hand's getting in a better spot. But then for a while, I fell back into that trap where I was rotating it 90 degrees, completely perpendicular. And that's what made me build that habit of setting this hand over here. Because now my hand's on the inside of the ball like this. And now no matter how much, unless I go, ooh, I can't flick it all the way around. So that was my sort of path I followed. I bowled every single way that you've seen people bowl. If you want to see an interesting person's release, you can look up Tim Kaggle III. He like Hadouken, like fireball from something. I don't know what the heck it is or how it works. But again, like he's a righty, but he makes it hook the opposite way of most righties. And he's on the tour. He's a professional. And it's like, dude, like if it works for you, it works for you. But I just found for me that given that I can take advantage of my athleticism and stuff, two-handed let me take advantage of that. Like usually when I'm bowling, I get kind of sweaty, like I do. So one-handed tends to cater control and the people who are a lot more smoother. 1.5-handed, I guess you can call it, like one hand, no thumb, caters like usually like your kind of middle, like in between the two-handed and one-handed people. And your two-handed people are usually try to take advantage of their athleticism and stuff to just create as much power and rotation as they can. So when they hit the pins, it hits harder, deflects less, and carries through way easier. But don't get me wrong, some people that throw one-handed, I mean, they get it. So it really is just about what feels the best and just poke around and see which one you find. Because a lot of people, if you start off one-handed, when you first throw two-handed, it's going to feel like completely foreign. Vice versa, if you start two-handed and go one-handed, it's usually a little bit easier. They say two hands the best, yeah. It's just because of how much oil there is now and how the balls are like engineered. It's just so different. And like people are able to create so much rotation. Like the physical game has developed so much from even just the past 10 years to cater more power and more speed, because when you have that wiggle room versus like on a house shot, you'll notice a lot of people that bowl in leagues now, they're younger. They like it because it's cooler for one, but two, since you have more wiggle room to miss, they just take advantage of that and just say, okay, thanks for the help. I'm just going to rip it as hard as I can and have it crash as hard as I can and just pray to God I strike more, which again, that makes sense because that's what the lane is telling you works. However, you'll notice on the professional tour, at least a lot of the people that cash and stuff now, usually the one-handers tend to reign supreme on the patterns that are a lot tighter and require you to be a lot more accurate because there's not as much miss room. So two-handers capitalize on the miss room while the one-handers capitalize on their control. But more commonly than not, again, I'm not saying there's not accurate people and powerful whatever and best of both worlds kind of people, but it really is dependent on what best feels the best for you. But excellent question. So, okay. Trying to think what else we could talk about here because I kind of laid out the good foundation of understanding. For the grand scheme, just think, okay, understand pins, pin video, shorts, pin video. It's the only short I have right now. Watch that short. Watch how that ball, and you'll see it. If it hits here, I'll throw it backwards. If the ball hits here through the pins, you'll notice it'll like go off one way, or it won't go off, or it'll like as it's falling off the back of the deck. Watch that ball as it's falling, and you'll see why it's leaving the pins it's leaving. Okay, we understand deflection, and we understand, okay, how the ball has to enter and how it has to deflect. Then it's, okay, how do I get my ball to do that on the lane? How do I play the lane? How do I play the lane with the oil? How do I get around what other people are spewing up in that little splash zone, I call it, past where the end of the lane pattern cuts off? How do I adjust based off of how I throw the ball to get it to that point? And then we worry about the physical stuff. Okay, what can I do to make it? If I know it's hitting light, over deflecting, I have to get it closer. Okay, what can I do physically to make it do that? Okay, and then this kind of develops as you just learn to bowl, because experiences shape how this development goes. So you can for sure train it, but you kind of have to go through a couple of experiences to train it the best, and that is your mental, how you think, which I've talked a lot about thinking and like understanding of things. But if you are a hothead or a sad head or whatever problem you have, we can work on that. And I have a video where I actually laid out the pre-shot routine and the pacers. Phenomenal video. If you want instant gratitude, like mentally, watch that. It's like 10-ish minutes. Good video. But you really learn the best when you're actually out there bowling. Something that I've always struggled with is I'm a pretty emotional guy, and I've learned to leverage that to take advantage of that because, exploit on the good moments by getting hyped up. But then I would fall victim back then a lot more to the bad moments. Like I would get really upset really easily, often got my mind cloudy, and I couldn't really focus on the task at hand, and I'd make my next shot better than my previous one. But now that I've been through the bad times and learned how to get more out of the good times, it's way easier for me now to just shake off the bad and press on with the good. So for me, I had to go out and experience the bad to learn how to cope with the bad. And the acronym that we have is called PACER, which I'm sure all of you have heard, like a variant of that, which again, it's in that video. Take a watch if you haven't. But PACER is a good acronym: preparation, acknowledgement, commitment, execution, reaction. So I'll go into this now since we're looking pretty good on time. And I think this is a really good, useful thing to talk about. So more often than not, when you get out there, everyone's been mad. If you've just started bowling, for any of you watching and you haven't been mad yet, I promise you, it's like every sport. There will be something that will upset you. It is inevitable, but just know it's all a part of development and it's all a part of the game. It's every game you play, any sport. We've all been there. And if you haven't, I promise you, you will. I promise you. So more commonly than not, we tend to get very upset and get our judgment clouded when we don't understand what's happening. I want you just to think back in a moment you've been upset about anything and think of why you were upset. And I can guarantee you the question you were thinking in your head was, why? 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 It could be anything. It could be about work. It could be about school. It could be about bowling. It could be about a different sport. But the question is, why? Why? Why did that person do that? Why did that thing happen? Why did whatever, right? It's always why. Why? Again, the way I like to teaching it from the pins back to the bowler, if you understand why things are happening, let's think of bowling, okay? Here's one I bet you all of you have had. If you're a righty and you keep leaving the 10 pin, how many times have you been like, oh my God, like I've left the 10 pin 6 times. Why? What do I do to fix that? And you get so mad, and then you miss the 10 pin, you miss the spare, and now you're down, and now you're getting mad because the opponent kept striking, and now you're falling more behind, and now you have that pressure, and you go up and you throw, and then you leave something else because you missed light again, and then you get more, and then it's just down we go, down the toilet bowl all the way. Happens all the time. I've been there. But again, if you understand why the pins are doing what they're doing, and you know, oh, I left a 10 pin, that means it over deflected just a little bit. Boom. I just avoided all of the bad stuff, rid it from my mind, and now I know, okay, next shot, if I want to fix it, I have to make this adjustment based off of what best works for me. Boom. But the first time and before you had an understanding of the pins, that makes you mad. Again, if I sat here and taught you the physical stuff first without teaching you the pins, you would get mad at that. Everyone would. We've all been mad at it before we understood about the pins. Oh, I just got unlucky. I left 6 pins. You didn't get unlucky, bro. You missed light the past 6 shots and made no actual adjustment that did anything correctly. And when I said to people, they get real mad. They get real mad. Oh, when you don't know what you're talking about, coach. You talking about. And again, it's easy to get upset at that. And I just sit there. I'm like, I understand why you're upset, but you got to understand stuff. So if you develop your mind before you start worrying about what you're doing physically and whatever's happening there, understand why you're leaving things and what you can do to fix it. And guess what? 90% of the issue that you have when you get upset fly away. Sure, another bowler might make some comment. You might be mad at yourself because you're not hitting your target. That kind of stuff, again, requires experience. But if you can just downright negate all of the technical stuff that makes you upset, you're already set up for so much more success, instant gratitude, instantly be able to take advantage of everything, right? So this acronym PACERS will help set up a phenomenal framework for you to follow as you go forward to help you get you into that right mindset more, which again, if you want me to go into more detail, I will, but watch the video. It dives a lot more deep down the rabbit holes and even shows examples of it online of me and my buddy Rob bowling. It's a great watch. So the P, A, and C within the word PACERS are designed to be executed before you even pick up your bowling ball. So P is preparation, preparing. Okay, getting into that mindset of that I have to be focused and all that stuff, and preparing and thinking, what am I going to do this shot? Okay, last shot left a 10 pin. I'm gonna slow my ball speed down, and I'm gonna get my hand a little bit around it to complement my slower ball speed. That'll help me get through the pin. Okay, I prepared. A, acknowledge. Okay, I know what I'm gonna do. I understand it. I got it. Okay, the C, this is the hard one. Commitment. Okay, and again, this is why I always say before you grab the bowling ball, do these, because you might have a great idea. You grab your ball and you go up there and you're like, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm going to do this. Then you change something and you step. That's bad. Not good. Before you even pick up the bowling ball, when it's sitting there, on the ball return and it's here, you're like, okay. Hope it doesn't fall. Okay, so you're like, okay, left the 10 pin. I'm going to do this, this, that. Okay, I'm acknowledging it. Okay, I'm going to do it. I committed to it. Now I can grab my ball. It's that easy. So now you've made up a whole idea before you've even gone up there, and you've set yourself up to be as focused on the idea you just plotted back at your seat or wherever it is you're at before you go up. Now is the E, the execute. This is the part where I actually throw the bowling ball. Boom. So I throw my ball. It goes down. It leaves whatever. It strikes. It leaves another 10 pin, whatever it does. That's all up to how you execute it. So in that exact moment, the minute you grab that ball, you should have no doubts in your mind that the idea that you just drew up is what you're going to do. And that means that in that moment, when you have the ball, you are solely focused on accomplishing the thing that you prepared, acknowledged, and committed yourself to doing when you get up there. Okay. Then the R is reaction or reflection, whichever one you want to use. How do you react or reflect on what just happened, right? If I left a 10 pin, I did all that. Let's say I left it again, okay? If that reaction's a bad one, well, not good, okay? But if you say, okay, I feel like I did the right thing, but that one still didn't quite work, I guess I have to do that more in the next shot. Done. Positive reflection. And now this process recycles and repeats itself every time, okay? I left my 10 pin again. Okay, let's say I just threw. I'll show you two different ones. Let's say I left it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I just didn't do it enough. Now I prepare. What am I going to do for this 10 pin? Immediately forget about what just happened. What am I going to do about this 10 pin? Okay, I acknowledge what I'm going to do. I'm going to commit to it. You grab your ball, whatever. You go up and throw. And then you get your spare. Versus, I threw that last shot that I thought was going to get rid of the 10 pin. I left it. And you're like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Like, I just can't get it. And you just kind of grab your ball, go up there, whatever. Then you miss it. Well, guess what? That's an open frame. Now you're behind. And now you're getting more mad. So that whole cycle that I was just talking about earlier of you get upset because you don't know what's going on. I like to call that being trapped in the ER, the execution reaction. You're skipping the whole part where you're preparing, acknowledging, and committing to the next thing. You're just constantly in this state of just throw the ball, get mad, throw the ball, be happy, throw the ball, get mad, throw the ball, get mad. And like you're skipping the bread and butter that makes a good bowler into a great one. And that is being able to leverage your emotions, which I told you personally, I used to struggle with very bad. I was very horrible. But the minute you can leverage those emotions that you have and take advantage of them, that is what separates every okay and even maybe good bowler from a great or a phenomenal one. Yep. I'm telling you down right now. So, okay, let's think. Recap again, because I'm going to keep recapping because some people are tuning in and tuning out. I want to make sure we're on the same page for how I'm running this channel. Okay. Understand the pins. Understand what dictates what pins a ball leaves. Rid it of your mind that there's luck. There's no luck. Pins do the same thing every time. They do. Just depends how you hit it. Okay. I've read that from my mind. I understand how my ball is traveling through the pins. I understand why I'm leaving what I'm leaving. Okay. Second part. Oil / the lane. Okay. I understand there's only 18 inches max I can hook, but I understand there's 60 feet. I understand this is what I'm bowling on. This is what I'm bowling against. And what types of movements I can do to make my ball do different things to accomplish that deflection characteristics that's going through the pins. Okay. I got that. Then it's, okay, what can I do physically to actually create that spot as it's going down the lane, which in turn creates that deflection through the pins. And then throughout you understanding that process, you have mentally been developing subconsciously in the background the whole time, because now you're ridding the why, the ER, the why. Why did that happen? Why? You understand that. You get that now because you did it. We talked about it. Okay? So that is why I teach the way I teach and why I'm very unconventional with the order. Because if you start with the physical and end with the pins, that's what turns people away from the sport so easily. Because someone could say, wow, you throw the ball really well, but you only average 140. And people are like, wow, I'm surprised that you don't average more. Like you must really got to work on so and so and so. And they probably say something about your physical game that still needs work. That's what makes people not want to continue playing. That's why so many people don't stick with it and they don't feel like it's worth it to get better, because you're not getting any gratitude out of that. There's no gratitude. The gratitude comes from me understanding what a strike's supposed to look like. And even if I'm just starting and not even hooking the ball, you get to strike and it does the exact thing that you thought. That's the gratitude. At least for me, that's what I enjoy. I don't enjoy sitting there just kind of doing something. It's like working a job that's just mundane work. Like there's no gratitude to that. But when you understand the bigger picture of the work you're doing is when it becomes more enjoyable for you to do the bottom line tasks, right? Like you can work at a grocery store stocking shelves like I used to. And it's like, okay, this is boring. Like I'm getting no gratitude out of this. What am I contributing? But if you understand all the work that's going into that and how much you're giving back and what's above your level, then is when it becomes more gratifying to do the mundane work you're doing. Right? I don't think I could put it any better than that. So stop falling into this trap and falling into the marketing stuff you see with all these bowling balls saying, oh, this ball hooks off the spot. There's no magical ball. There's no nothing that's going to fix your stuff. Save your money and your time and don't focus on buying the newest bowling ball because it supposedly strikes the most. And what was that thing they said? Oh, that new AI core technology in the 900 global balls produces 5% more strikes. No, it does not. Stop falling victim to the stupid stuff and start realizing the reality that's in front of you. Like you're not leaving that 10 pin because you didn't buy the ball that strikes 5% more. You left the 10 pin because your ball did not go through the pins the right way. Right? So stop, please. I'm begging all of you to stop falling victim to this crap that they're laying out in front of you. Even like when they show like the path of the ball, I don't know y'all have seen, like they'll draw a photo of a lane and they'll draw like a little line and it'll show like the ball as it's hooking or whatever. That's not the dimensions of the lane, guys. We know it's like this wide, like this long. They do that to make it look like it's hooking a ton. This ball hooks the most and it hits the hardest. No, it does not. The person throwing it, you could give me a ball and you the same exact ball, it will look so different because you and I do not throw the same. We don't. Something will always be different. So stop, please. I'm begging of you. Save your money and your time and don't fall victim to the BS that they're putting out, but instead elevate your mind on the stuff that actually matters. Right? I'm telling you, because you will hear it so many times. You will hear it on every channel, every coach, everything. We've all been there. I've been there. But then I kind of started to realize that that's not the way the sport is. How can a person with any sort of common sense in their mind think, the only sport where the playing field is invisible? And I think my primary focus should be on what every sport focuses on. No, we cannot see what's happening. So how does what I'm doing with my arm, how does my balance at the line, how is that the most important thing? And again, it's not anybody's fault that we're like that. Well, one, they market bowling balls to look like that because that's what gets people to buy it. We've all been there. We've all seen it. You could go on some social media page for some bowling ball company and you'll see them throwing all these balls and it looks super cool. But then once you understand why it looks as cool as it does is when you're like, oh, it's just the same ball as this one. It's the same as this one. It's the same as whatever. I have a ball just like it, right? Like, I'm not telling you to not go out there, buy the balls, experience the different stuff that the awesome world of bowling equipment has to offer, but understand what it is you need, right? Like when you see these professionals buying all these bowling balls, they're not buying them just because they need a new bowling ball. They're buying it because it's a tool. Like golfing, you have a driver, you have the different lengths of irons, you have the different whatevers. It's the same with bowling. Some balls hook more, some balls hook less. Some of them do more with oil, some of them do less with oil. Some of them, there's all these numbers and all these things. And if you look up bowling ball inside, they have different engineering on the inside of them that accomplish different things, which is the exact same as golfing, right? But when you're first starting out, same with golfing, you don't have to buy 18 wedges, 18 putters, 5 drivers. You don't need that because you're just learning. You need the basics. So buy something that's like benchmark. Buy a ball that's like middle of the road, great for a beginner that isn't too much, isn't too little, doesn't hook too much, doesn't hook too little, doesn't read the lane too late, doesn't read the lane too early, right? And then once you start to get better and understand why balls read the lane the way they do is then when you can make an actually educated purchase on your next bowling ball, because then you realize, okay, I have a ball that does this, have a ball that does this, but I don't have one that does this. This ball does that. Then you know what you're buying. Trust me, I've been there. I bought balls just because I like the color. I bought balls just because I watched some video. I've fallen victim to it, which is why I'm trying to save you all the money and time, right? Save your money, save your time. Don't buy a ball that's just going to frustrate you and get it drilled or something or whatever, when in reality, it's only because you just didn't know what you were buying. It's one thing to look up, and it's like if you're like, oh, I'm gonna research a bowling ball, they're gonna show you videos of it striking all the time, right? Because they want you to buy it. That's what it is. And I get it. I get it. Everyone's got to make their money, right? Like I understand that, but I just want all of you to leave with the wealth of knowledge that you need to get and spend your money, which is ever growing ever so difficult to make nowadays and is continuing to get harder, on the right stuff. The right stuff, the stuff you need, the stuff that will benefit you, the stuff that will make you happy and will keep you coming back to bowling, because it's a great sport. But it's like everything else. Every other sport has to make their money. All these companies produce all these different equipment and everything. They all have to make their money. That's just the way it is. But I just want, I'm not telling you don't buy stuff because you want to get it, but I'm telling you just make an educated purchase. Involve yourself in the things that you should be involved in, the things that you enjoy, and you'll like it. I guess that's the bottom line. What's up, David? I see you in the chat. What's up? So I'm trying to think what else I can talk about. I guess we can kind of go into some bowling balls then if you want to understand some of them. So the big thing that I would argue that you should worry about is, at least when you're getting your first ball, think I need something benchmark. So a lot of people like it when you're looking at the lane. Let's say I'm watching a ball. You like it, and all of you do. You like it when the ball's going, and it hooks all of a sudden at the end of the lane. That's what everyone likes, which is what they like to sell people because that gets them hooked the easiest. So those are pearl bowling balls. So different bowling balls have a different finish on the actual surface, which you can alter if you so choose, by the way. But every bowling ball has a different surface on it, which dictates how much it reads the lane. So in general, think the shinier a bowling ball is, in general, the later it's going to want to hook, or the less it's going to want to hook, right? So some shiny bowling ball that you have in the pro shop is probably what they're going to put on your plate and say, this is what I recommend to start with. So shinier balls don't have as much grit. They don't have as much of that friction. They don't do as much with it, AKA they don't hook as much to our eyes, but the reality of it is that they do less when they see as much friction. So if it goes in the oil, since it's shiny and isn't gritty and isn't like that sandpapery material, it's waiting. Oh, the oil cut off, boom, and there it goes. So it makes that, it has that like hockey stick-like look to it. But again, we know it's not really hooking that much because we talked about the whole 60 feet, 18 inches, right? We went over that. Okay, excellent. So that's a pearl. Then into the harder stuff, we'll go down. So pearls have the most length, least amount of hook because of the length, okay? Then you have your hybrids. So your hybrids are usually going to be a little bit duller kind of looking, and they're called a hybrid because they're the in-between of a pearl and the next ball I'll talk about. So hybrids are the next step down in terms of something that reads the lane a little bit sooner, a little bit less aggressively. It's easier to control a ball when it doesn't hook at the end, because since we know that the oil cuts off and when people throw it, pushes the oil down. If you have a pearl ball and it's getting into that splash zone past where the oil is cut off, it's going to read real goofy. It's not, you might hit a spot that someone's bowled over a million times and it might not hook, and you might miss it by only 1 inch and it hooks a lot. It's like, whoa, why is my ball doing a different thing every time? That's why. So the duller the surface, the more easier it is to control. So a hybrid is something a step down from that more commonly. Down from that, you have your solids, which are your duller. I actually can grab. Here, I'll grab some of these to kind of show you. So I'll show you a pearl, a solid, and a urethane. Let me see if I can grab this here. So it goes pearl, hybrid, solid, urethane. That's the order in which the latency of which they read the lane. So a pearl, if I can grab it, is this. So I know it doesn't give it enough justice, but you can see how shiny this one is off of the lights behind me. So pearl means read the lane late, read super aggressively. I don't like hybrids, so I don't buy a hybrid. This is a solid. So it may look shiny, but Hear that? That's because it's duller. It's like a sandpaper versus this pearl one. See? Can't hear it because it's got that much more silky material. Then your urethanes, which are these, are made of a material very different and very up for debate. But these read almost instantly. But instead of like being aggressive, they kind of really slowly, really controlled, like kind of slowly make their way over. So these, because of how they're designed and how that stuff is, you'll notice a lot of the two-handers are always ripping these down the lane because when you have all that speed, all that power, and all that rotation, it's so easy to control something like this versus a pearl where it's just waiting, and it hooks, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it overhooks and whatever. So more commonly, people that have higher rev rates and stuff prefer the urethanes, and your more control bowlers prefer the pearls. So I discussed earlier the inside of them has different technology, which they for sure do. So this one, and some of them, the inside, like the core is what it's called, is symmetrical. So it might look different, but if you slice it down the middle of whichever direction it's facing, it'll be symmetrical. This one is asymmetrical, meaning it's actually offset to the side. So the cores on the inside are the technology that makes the ball read the lane the way it does. So asymmetricals tend to make it store more energy and wait longer before they hook, and symmetrical is designed to not store as much and hook sooner. I'll make a video that definitely discusses like what the numbers mean, because I'm sure you've all heard of RG and diffs and different layouts you can get and all that kind of stuff. I'll make a video discussing that because, again, I want all of you to have the knowledge of that kind of stuff, but that's not what I focus on. I focus a lot more on your understanding of the game, your understanding of the pins, your understanding of the lane, the adjustments you can make. So regardless of what ball you make, or not what ball you make, what ball you have, you can still leverage that idea in your mind and still make that ball a decent one for the situation at hand, right? Some bowling balls, to put it simply, on a house shot are not great for certain bowlers because they might just not hook enough at all, or might hook way too much, or might not have the right kind of feel, or might not be designed to fit the bowler's style. A common problem that people have on house shots is the ball tends to burn out early, aka that tech on the inside does the stuff that the tech needs to do super soon. So the ball will hook, but it almost like it starts hooking, and then it hooks, but then it like keeps going straight. So instead of having that like continuity between the pins, it goes, and it kind of marshmallows out, and then it just deflects off of everything. That's a common problem that bowlers have, which if that's happening, that means your ball is not waiting long enough. It's not getting far enough down the lane before the tech on the inside starts to take over and make it hook. So it's like, okay, it goes, oh, the tech doesn't work. And now it's just done. Now it's just burned out. Burned out or rolled out is what we call that. You can look up ball rolling out in bowling, and they'll have a lot more fun. That's a good video I should make, actually. I'll make that, like rolling out, controlling the rollout. But if we know, again, even if your ball is doing that, we know, okay, tech does everything, or it hooks too quick and then it dies out. That means it's not skidding long enough to let the tech take over and make it hook. So that means I have to move into where the ball's going through more oil for longer, and then the tech takes over later. So again, you just got to understand the concepts, and that makes everything. You can make something work with almost nothing if you just understand the concepts. And obviously the physical side plays a part of it too, because it's one thing to imagine something, understand something, and not be able to execute it. And that's frustrating, but at least you know what's going on, and at least you know, okay, to put it simply, for my personal game and how I bowl, my mind has just developed leaps ahead from where my physical side has. I just got to catch up. And to put it to you bluntly, to catch up, you just have to do drills at the house and go out and bowl. You just have to go out there and experience things. That's all it is. If I haven't reiterated it again, for those of you that are in here, if you have a question, even if it's not pertinent to what I'm discussing, type it in the chat, and I will happily go over it. Happily. So we still got like 20-ish minutes, and I don't want to cut us short here because we've had some good questions come through so far, and I feel like we've had some good discussion, which if you are someone who's watching this replay back, you can probably stop watching it here because this is all questions. Unless you want to keep listening, then for sure. But I don't plan on going into down the rabbit hole any more than we need to here, because I feel like we've covered what we needed. But I will stick around if you have questions, obviously. So we will happily go over that stuff. But I just wanted to really set out the groundwork for setting yourself up to understand the sport the correct way and not to fall victim to the common flaws that we see in today's, not only coaching, but just the sport. Like, it's just so hard to explain to people, especially for me. It's so hard to explain to people that the sport is very difficult to understand because of the fact that oil and stuff is invisible. Like, that's such a foreign concept that's only unique to bowling. So unless you've bowled or unless you have a extensive background within bowling, that's something that's very difficult to make somebody understand. So I'm trying to make that be pertinent to everybody here that's watching now, that you need to really focus on the stuff that is very foreign to every other sport, and then everything else will come along with it naturally. The human mind is such an interesting thing, and we self-consciously make developments and make changes without even realizing it. So elevate your mind, and I promise it's okay to feel like you're behind physically. I still feel like I'm behind physically, because me making this channel and coaching and providing back to all of you is only elevating my mind even further as we dive into some of these concepts. So it's the off season. A lot of bowling alleys haven't been able to squeeze me in, so I haven't been able to go out and practice as much recently as I've wanted to. But obviously, once leagues kick back up and some of the pro stuff starts to kick off and I go to some tournaments and stuff, I'll be right back into the swing of things. But it's frustrating. So I promise I get it. If you feel like your mind is very, very developed within the sport, but you feel like you have to play catch up with your physical side, I promise. Just keep going at it. Keep staying involved within the sport and join leagues. Go to some pro-am tournaments, or if you're a professional that's watching or someone who wants to be a professional, like, keep watching more videos, keep learning more drills from other people, because there is so much great content. I don't want it to seem like I'm slamming some of the content, because there is for sure a time when you need to get it. But I'm just saying, don't focus on the physical stuff now. Focus on understanding the sport first and understanding why. Understand the why in the things, and that'll make developing the physical stuff so much easier. And you'll be like, I don't know if what that person is saying is something that would fit well for me. Just because it works for them might not work for you, right? But I just don't want you to fall victim to all the other things out there, because some of the stuff I'm saying might not work for you too. But again, you just need to understand what works best for you and understand what's happening. And then from there, you'll know, okay, here's my flaws, here's my strengths. What this person's saying or what Coach Logan is saying is something that I don't think I should be focusing on, because it's something that I already have a strength in. So I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm not trying to bash any of the modern day coaching we have, but I'm just saying, understand the why within the sport, and you can weed out the stuff that you don't think will be pertinent to you. Because I promise, I'm sure some of you have heard some of the stuff I've said, and you've been like, I don't really think that that'll work best for me because of X, Y, Z, how I throw. That's great. Perfect. I'm just throwing out ideas out there so some people that are first picking the things up can at least have an idea. But one thing that works for somebody does not work for everybody. That's for sure. So find the stuff that works for you. But again, to find the stuff that works for you and to find the stuff you know you need to improve on, you have to understand how the pins fall, what your ball does, and all that. And that'll all come. Versus just saying, I got to work on my balance, and watching a video of someone that's talking about balance, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll do that. But in reality, that's not what you need to be working on. Do you get what I'm saying? That's what the whole point of this live stream was for me to stress. It's to stress, learn in a unconventional way to the way you learn every other sport. Don't focus on the what you can see. Focus on the what am I thinking first. And that will elevate your experience within the sport of bowling, and probably quite a handful of other sports too. Quite a lot. But again, if any of you have questions, we have like 15 minutes left max. I'm just going to open up the floor here. I'm not going to dive too deep into any more concepts in this live stream, at least not until the next one. But if you guys like this kind of live stream stuff, I'm going to continue to do it. Keep offering means of all of you ways to reach out to me. If you haven't visited the community, if you click on the channel and click on, I think it's like visit community or something, you can post in there, send videos, send clips, ask questions in there, and I'll happily respond as quick as I can. Happily. And obviously with the live streams, anytime I'm on here, even if it's a question that's not pertinent to what I'm talking about, throw it in there. Throw it in the chat. I highly invite you to throw it in the chat, because it's a great tool. I'm very glad that YouTube has kind of stuff like this that makes it so you don't have to have a lot of like technical knowledge of stuff, because I was looking at like Twitch and stuff and all these other ways of streaming, but then it's like, oh, you have to make an account for that and all that. But almost everybody has like a Google account or something that they can just have signed up with YouTube. So I found this was, at least in my opinion, the easiest way. And if you guys disagree, then let me know. I'll happily release some other means of delivering content to you guys. But I feel like this is easy because you can just log on and look me up and I'm right there. But I really hope that what I've covered so far has been useful. And if you haven't been able to watch the whole thing, I have already made a playlist, a new playlist that just says live streams, and I'll just number it. And like, I think this one, I think I put, what did I write? Yeah, Coach Logan live stream 1, the understanding process. Yeah, so I'll put like the video, like the number, like Coach Logan live stream 2, 3, and I'll put the overarching concepts we covered. So if you want to go back and you're bored or you're driving to work or something in the morning and you want to just listen to my just so soothing voice, I know you wouldn't want to wake up to anything else. You can have me on your phone or whatever, or on your computer or your TV or whatever. I'm accessible everywhere. But I just want to make everything as user friendly and as available as I can to speak with you guys one-on-one, like these live streams. Like I love this chat. I know, at least for the while, I suspect some of you may be kind of timid to chat, but I think once the YouTube channel kind of grows and we get more viewership and stuff, I'm sure more questions will come in. These live streams will kind of develop from me talking about a concept and people watching the video back later. I think it'll develop more into people showing up and I'll just be solely answering questions. I love that concept. I think that's a great concept. So for now, with every video that I plan on putting in these live streams, I'll have it some sort of very broad, loosely based topic I'm going to cover. And then I'll dive into the topic. And then if a question comes up, I'll go off of the topic and answer the question. And then I'll come back into the topic. So that'll be how this will roll, at least for now. But if down the line, the viewership gets so large that I'm just answering questions, that's great. I love that even more because that means I'm answering things that are pertinent and that I know that people instantly want to have that gratification for. But again, live streams are a means to do that, obviously, when I'm on. But when I'm off, there's that community that you can post anything and you can comment on one of my posts. You can ask questions. You can ask anything, and I will hit you back as quick as I can. Trying to think what else. What else is broad? I don't want to go into some like crazy rabbit hole. I could use a question here, guys. Something broad. It's a broad thing to cover. I don't have enough time to really go into crazy detail either. Something broad. Oh, here's a good one. Whatever bowling alley you bowl the most at, or whatever bowling alley that you trust or know somebody at or whatever, any alley that has a pro shop that sells bowling balls, equipment, all that stuff, which is most of them by now, at least most of them I've been to, anyone who operates those pro shops are always very, very, very knowledgeable, very approachable, and they're very good at creating fits that fit your hand and getting you a ball that will fit the needs that you're asking for. I have yet to bump into a pro shop operator where I've been like, wow, like they have not given me good advice. I disagree with things they've said. Some of them might obviously be less knowledgeable than others. They might be younger or older, newer or more seasoned, and have some more tenure under them, which is great. But the pro shop operator will always be a great resource for you to ask, have questions, have them watch you bowl. And better yet, their knowledgeability within the art of bowling balls and the technology and all that stuff expands way far beyond where my knowledge is of it, at least. I have a very baseline knowledge, and that's the thing I've actually been working on the most, is researching how the balls work and the tech and all that stuff, so I can deliver a great means of educating you all on that based off of how I coach and how these videos are formatted. But they will have great resources for you to use and are a great point of contact to establish that can get you the right ball and the right fit. Because I cannot stress how important it is, especially if you're just looking for the first ball or a ball that might fit in the bag, to have it actually fit to your hand and how you grip and throw it. If you have a ball, especially this is way more commonly in one-handers and traditional bowlers, if you have a ball where the thumb or the finger holes does not fit the span of your hand, on that backswing, you have to grip it really hard, because if you don't, it'll fall out of your hand. And when you grip really hard, your arm tenses up and you're getting all like, and you're trying to grip it. When you tense up your body like that and you're gripping it, you tend to miss or fall off balance or whatever. So I cannot stress the importance of having a ball that fits you and that you can very easily swing and throw without much effort, because anywhere that you're applying like pressure in your bones or pressure in your muscles, that's another area that is no longer loose that you can now use to get your target. A common way to know, at least if you're a traditional bowler, the easiest way to know is, okay, in the top of the backswing, am I gripping my hand? Because depending on what hand you throw with, if you're a righty or lefty, if you find yourself missing your target the opposite direction, that's usually why. Because if I'm a one-handed bowler and I'm gripping, I'm like, ugh, you tighten up and you throw in across your body, so you miss to the left. Versus if you're a righty, then you'll miss in to the right? So that's the problem that we run into there. And then if you're a two-hander, if these two fingers that you use to put into the ball, or if you're like a one hand, no thumb, if you're having to like tuck them in a lot more like this, because you feel like the ball is going to come out, they're probably too big. If you look at your hand, you have two different knuckle lines. You'll notice there's one that's close to the tip of your finger and one that's just below. For traditional and two-handed bowlers, more commonly, you want to go for a fingertip grip, not a conventional. So fingertip is going down to that first line, that very first line. And the conventional, which is what the house balls have, goes down to the second line or just all the way. You can just jam it all the way in. So where all that rotation is coming from is for sure from the grips. But if you bury your hand in, like these two fingers way far in, you can't flick as hard because it comes off way faster and you don't have that grip either. So it just slides off. Versus if I just have it on these two grips right here, I can really, really flick it hard and create that rotation and create that revolution rate, which again is only applicable if the ball even fits your hand well and you're not gripping it super hard, it doesn't fall out of your hand and whatever. So if you're gripping it, then that's energy that you're wasting on places you don't need to be wasting it, and that means you can't control the ball as much and yada, yada, yada. So making sure you have the right fit, as well as if you struggle to hoist 16 pounds, then throw 15. If you struggle with 15, throw 14. Your strength will come as you get, especially if you're a younger bowler or you have someone that's younger that's looking to get into it. Don't rush them into getting a bigger ball. Don't rush them into something that they're going to be uncomfortable with, because that only enforces bad habits. A lot of bad habits will come along with having something that's not fit or too heavy or too light for a bowler. However, if you are a more seasoned bowler, I will strongly advise you throw between 14 to 16 pounds. 15 is arguably the most optimal. In my personal opinion, I believe 15 pounds is the most optimal. So if you own a bowling ball that's less than 14 pounds, that technology, that core on the inside actually is different. So 14 to 16 pounds are the bowling balls that have that same amount of core and hidden tech on the inside that does most of the lifting for you. So on top of that, since we know, okay, pins, the way they deflect and stuff off of the ball deflects off the pins and stuff. If you have a ball that's too light, that means it's going to deflect more. If you have a ball that's too heavy, that means it's going to not deflect enough, because you do want some deflection. But 14 to 16 pounds tends to have the best deflection characteristics out of all of them. And 15 gets the best of both worlds. It has that push through, it has that continuity, but has some deflection, versus the 14 has a little bit too much deflection and the 16 has not enough deflection. But for sure, again, if you can, whatever you can fit, the heavier the better. That means it stays grounded and travels through. So a lot of people say 16. If you can throw it accurately, throw 16 pound. But if you can't, I throw 14. I do. I actually used to throw 15, and I kind of felt like I was muscling it a little bit more than I should have, and I swapped to 14. That was like a year and a half ago, and that's where my average went above the 200 mark, and now I'm well above that moving forward. So it really is just up to what works for you. But obviously, since I know my stuff deflects a little bit more, I have to play a little tighter on that head pin so it doesn't bounce off that head pin as much and leave the 10s and all that ugly stuff we don't want. So that's the big concept, I think, with the pain characteristics. If you're first starting to dive into this sort of like Coach Logan philosophy of understanding, I would advise you kind of think in the back of your mind, like the different weights and stuff, and think like, if my ball is lighter or not as coming in as much of an angle, I have to be closer toward the center of that head pin so it doesn't bounce off as much, versus if you're throwing a heavier ball that's waiting longer before it hooks into the pocket, you don't have to be as tight on the head pin, because if it hits too close to the head pin, it's going to have way too much continuity and go way past everything in the middle, right? So I'm going to go more into that. That's actually probably going to be my next video. I'll probably talk about like the angles and stuff, because everyone here is like, oh, when you leave a 10 pin, you got to add more entry angle, which in essence is true, because that means you're not hitting the head pin close enough based off the angle that you're using already. But it's also kind of convoluted, because like, what does that mean? Like, do you even know what that means? The person that's telling me that, like, come on. So great questions all around today. I think we've had some pretty good discussions. I feel like I can't really complain with it, at least not me anyway. So I'll probably log off here since we haven't had any questions roll through in the past handful of time. But for all of you that have tuned in, or for any of you that are going back and rewatching this clip, I thank you very, very kindly for your support. I'm very, very, very grateful that this channel is already past that 50 subscriber goal, so that I can live stream already. Like that's phenomenal. That the quality of this live stream is quite subpar, because I guess for whatever reason, I'm live streaming off my computer right now, but I have like a much better like phone and camera that I actually had hooked up initially. But for whatever reason, it said it takes like 48 to 72 hours for YouTube to realize that you have the 50 subscribers, which when I logged on my phone, it said I didn't have it yet. And I like refreshed it and reset my phone and did all this, and it said I didn't have it. But then I went on my laptop and it let me stream. So I said, okay, I guess I have to make this work. Like I have my tripod and everything already set up for my phone, and I just kind of had to spitball it and make this work for the sake of this video. So I apologize that the quality and my resources I have available are not nearly as much as I want it to be. I promise I will continue to try to get better equipment and stuff, so that way I can deliver a much more great experience for all of you as you continue to elevate your minds and go along this lovely bowling journey along with me. But regardless whether you're watching now, watching this back, thank you so much. It means so much to me that a lot of you are finding some benefit out of this whole little dream of mine to give back to the community within bowling. And I promise, like I said, anything that I gain off of this, which I can't even gain anything until I have whatever X amount, I'm going to immediately reinvest back into updating my area that I have to give back much better content to all of you guys. Okay, that is my 100% honest promise I will have to all of you. So again, if you have any questions or anything that you want immediately answered, comment on any of the videos, go into the community and comment anything you want in there. Reach out, whatever means you have necessary. I promise I will get back to all of you as soon as I can. Around my schedule and everything, it's been super busy, but I will get back to all of you as soon as I can. So again, thank you all so much. Leave a comment. I will see you all in the next video, which should be the Quick Tip Tuesday by the very latest. So take care, everybody.